So this strikes me as the perfect gentleman's gift store. Is that how you position yourself?
Yeah, I think it is. There's definitely that angle. It's the shop for the man that has everything. We hear that a lot. My husband has everything. I said, oh, well, he probably doesn't have an inkwell with its original clock in it, or a classic shaker. This one, when you turn it, it has all of the recipes for different cocktails.
Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. Today we are at Bentley's with the founder and owner, Tim Bent. Tim, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you, Raphael. Thank you for coming to see us.
How did you come up with the idea for this store?
Well, I started while I was at school. I started collecting suitcases and trunks and vintage clothing.
And how did you get into that?
Well, I was at school in Cambridge, and so I was surrounded by that sort of Edwardian splendor that was still there. And I was very into Bryce Ed Revisited, the original TV series. So that was very influential on my sort of style at that time. And I started buying and collecting luggage.
As a student?
Evolved as a student, yeah.
Wonderful.
And that evolved into collecting so much of it, because it was back in the 80s, that I found there was actually a burgeoning market for it. So it started to grow from that. And I've done it ever since.
Was there someone in your family who was interested in this? Or was it just an innate interest that...
Well, yeah, I think there was a combination. So my parents were big antique collectors. So as a child, I was taken around all these country houses around England. So I got to know that. And I think that had a deep influence on my collecting.
But it wasn't like, Mom and Dad, I'm bored. When can I go home? But you kind of got the taste of it.
I did get the taste of it. I think with that, they collected Art Deco. So that was part of sort of my style inspiration, I guess. But they were very supportive when their son decided that he wanted to become an antique dealer.
Yeah, the other day, I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I like Art Deco too. And there was this British guy by the name of Bevis Hillier. And I learned that they did an exhibition in Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts where they coined the term Art Deco, which wasn't until the 70s. It was like, I was blown away. But it's a really cool style. We saw like a clock today. So is it an aesthetic that you are also interested in?
Yeah, I think it is, because I like the simplicity of the line, particularly as British Art Deco, is, you know, those simple lines, designers like Keith Murray, who designed the classic Wedgwood range of a very streamlined, really machine age, like an American jazz age, but with an English take, so it's quite pared back. Those sort of simple Edwardian lines as well, which you particularly see on English silver from that era, which is what I like.
Interesting. So tell me more about the concept of this store here. Is it an amalgamation of your interests? Walk us through.
It is. So I think the central theme, when you look at it, is probably involving travel. So from the trunks and then even through to the aeronautical models, I got really interested in the sort of stylistic development of things like Concorde, as well as the whole technological development.
I mean,
so, yeah,
the Concorde was ahead of its time, right? And it was cool and powerful and luxurious. And
and I think so far, still ahead of its time, really. So it's that sort of, I think leather and travel are at the core. I started buying leather luggage and I still love the way that leather shows its age. It keeps that sort of history. And the quality of the craftsmanship of really good leather means that, you know, a piece is still as good now as it was 150 years ago.
Unfortunately, you know, traveling with these trunks these days, it's almost impossible unless you have help. So more people use it for interior design purposes. Yeah. That's how you use it too, right? Or do you actually? No. Okay.
I do travel with a leather suitcase.
Without wheels?
But only overnight. I think anything more than that. I'm quite a big fan of Globetrotter luggage as well, which is much, much lighter and still has that traditional sort of aesthetic. But yeah, we find now that principally, particularly with the trunks, they either sell for interior design, perfect coffee table, maybe a lovely chest at the end of the bed, or with Vuitton and with Goya particularly, there are now collectors that are building really important collections just of those brands. Goya actually buy a lot of pieces for their stores as decoration. And he also has an amazing archive, as do Vuitton, of their vintage pieces.
Oh, wonderful. I once, as a student, I was always buying vintage clothes from a gentleman, and he would come to my town, and he had these shirts, and he had them in a Goyard suitcase. And I recognized it. I was like, that's a nice suitcase. He was like, 30 euros, it's yours. And I was like, well, and then he called me later and said, oh, we have a whole set. Do you want that too? I was like, yes. And it was an interesting period because it was like a 1970s. It was made for Marcello Mastroianni, the Italian actor. So it was canvas, woven canvas in the typical pattern. But I was able to sell it and finance my trips to the US because my now wife was in the US and I was in Germany and I was a student. So I have a very fond affinity to Goyard furniture.
Yeah, good, absolutely.
Would you mind taking us to the store?
Yeah.
And showing us different items that you have?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah. This is a really nice little selection of luggage. These are 2 Louis Vuitton trunk and suitcase, but in that most immaculate condition, this case. These
are like bull hide, correct?
They'd be cowhide. Yeah, they would be a cowhide. So very natural, veg tanned as well. So they do evolve, they're not sealed, they evolve. The tanning allows the leather to change color over a period of time.
So what are these little lines here?
They are along the edge of the fold mark here. It's just a decorative device where they would have just run a hot tool along there just to give a little bit of decoration, very subtle.
I can feel it. It's a little groove.
So it's just
just the heat, basically.
It is exactly that. Yeah.
And then the corners are reinforced.
They are. They would mold the leather corners from a single piece of leather using pressure and heat. So they retain that shape, but it gives a very pleasing sort of corner.
And the frame is made out of wood?
It is a poplar wood. So very thin and relatively light, but very, very strong.
What's the advantage of using poplar?
I think it is that weight as much as anything. So it has that strength, but it's also not too heavy.
Yeah, I have some poplar shoe trees and they're super lightweight.
Super light, yeah.
Even though they're not hollow, and they still feel sturdy, so I can see why that's a popular wood.
So Vuitton took their trunk making principles and kind of shrunk that down to make their cases. So they still have metal supports to give strength to the lid, to hold the lid up.
So when you buy a suitcase, what do you look for? Is it condition? Is it provenance? Is it brand? Is there certain quality aspects? What do you consider?
Well, it certainly is all those things. So personally, I look for things in the very best condition I can find. And that's really important to me, the condition. This is the original handle on this. So, in fact, this isn't the original handle on this. I've had that one redone so well that you can't tell. This is the original handle on this one. So the condition, to find them in the original condition, is really important. I love Vuitton, and I love all leather Vuitton because I think it's very, very subtle. You can hardly tell that it's Vuitton except for the quality and the branding. When you look, everything is still branded. So it's branded here. All of the studs are marked Vuitton as well, but it's very subtle.
It's interesting because a while ago, we took apart some Louis Vuitton stuff. And what most people don't realize is that this is actually canvas. It's not a leather.
Yeah.
But you may find about it's canvas with PVC and then printed.
Yeah.
Okay. The price tag typically, especially for new Louis Vuitton items, you wouldn't associate that naturally. At least I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So tell us about the difference between like the old versus the new.
So this requires different skills. Obviously, to choose a leather for a start, you have to have a very high grade leather and a very expensive leather to get as perfect a finish as that. Also,
because you don't want bug bites, you don't want the stretch marks. So this is all probably cut from the coupon.
Yep.
So you also need the right size.
You do. So that is an absolute premium hide. That is a really expensive hide. And then you have to have leather craftsmen that have retained the skills to be able to work with it. You can't mechanize that. This is entirely handmade.
Yeah. Could we have a look inside?
Yeah.
This is the condition. Is amazing.
It's really beautiful. Again, this has that very subtle line through here.
And it's also like, when you make this entire product, the last step is to put in this line. If you screw up on the line, the whole product is
Absolutely.
toast.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's a very nice kind of shiny leather, but it's slightly embossed with what people would today call maybe a very fine-grained Saffiano.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So it's unusual to find it leather-lined. That was kind of the best that you could get. And you see here, this originally would have had a tray.
Yes.
And probably a tray full of bottles, brushes, a whole vanity set in the tray.
Insert.
Sometimes one that would be, you could fold up and take it as a separate case.
Also, what I like here is, the mechanics are covered by the leather in a very elegant way. There's not a huge gap, and it's lined with a stiffer material, so it's very neatly done.
Beautiful. I mean, the quality, that's where you see the quality of a piece like this. And this lip means that it's watertight as well, and almost airtight. I mean, it's so nicely made.
So how much would a case like this sell for?
This would be £5,500.
Okay. And do you still have the keys?
We don't, but it's possible that Vuitton may make a set for you. Because the nice thing with Vuitton is they have two identification marks. They have the lock number, which is stamped onto the lock, and then on the inside label, there's often a number stamped there. If you have both numbers, then Vuitton can look through their records and they may be able to make a key for the lock.
It's a bit like...
They don't guarantee it, but...
It's a bit like Mercedes-Benz, where you can go back and get an old part made. That is really great. Unlike maybe, if you buy a Lucid car, it may be bankrupt 2 years from now. So you're not going to get that kind of stuff. Cool longevity, wonderful. Does a monogram impact the value of a piece?
Not if your initials are MF. In the past, people were not so keen on that. But what's interesting is that now people understand that it was specially made for whoever MF was. So it was probably bespoke made for them. This may have been a service they could have offered in the store at the time. It would just be natural to order your initials as well. So I personally think that adds to the history as well.
And you can see from the line here, there's a corner reinforcement on the inside.
Yeah, actually, this is originally this would have had a canvas outer cover to protect it. And I think this is the shadow, and then the canvas cover had leather corners. And I think that is the shadow of where that corner was. And so you can feel,
you can feel a little bit too.
Yeah.
So if we compare this to a modern one, how does that flare?
I think more than anything, so it's quite a lot lighter. Obviously, the canvas is lighter than leather. So in terms of a practical sense, this is probably more practical than leather. But if you're happy to have it age naturally, then actually, this won't really age very much. But you see the construction is pretty similar.
Oh yeah, you see more
they still use
nails.
this. And you'll find this in 19th century Vuitton trunks, just the same principle, these metal supports.
I mean, this leather, to me, feels a bit more, pigmented.
It is absolutely, yeah.
But it's like in modern cars, right? Like if you go to a nice Bentley or Rolls-Royce from the 60s and 70s, they have an open pore aniline dyed leather. Today, because of fire regulations, they're all more pigmented.
Yeah.
I like natural leathers. That's just me, and this is what this other suitcase was. Yeah. But times change.
They do, yeah. Okay. I think, they look at, Vuitton obviously look for consistency as well here. So, every single case starts out new, looking exactly the same.
Nice. I mean, there's a little bit of play here on the canvas.
Yeah. It's a nice size case.
What are the most desirable luggage brands that you sell these days?
Well, I suppose the Vuitton is really the biggest brand in the world in terms of recognition. So we still have a huge market for that. Goya is very, very popular, more difficult to find. I think their production over the years was less than Vuitton, and so it is more difficult to find.
What about Hermès?
Hermès, definitely. Again, not easy to find in really good condition.
In terms of quality, who would you rank?
Well, I still think Hermès is very difficult to beat. Yeah. I think their leather work is incredible. The whole principle of the company, their investment in their long-term future of training, they're constantly training new leather craftsmen. So they are totally committed to leather at their core. And I think it's, you really don't see better craftsmanship than that.
So, but you have other things. You have leather goods. Yeah. This looks very pristine.
Yeah. So this is actually one of the few modern pieces that we sell. So this is made by an amazing British craftsman called Neil McGregor, all hand stitched. He's been doing it for 50 years. I think his workmanship is absolutely exceptional.
The handle is beautiful.
Perfect. I think you can always judge a case by its handle. And that's
the leather quality.
immaculate.
Yeah, this is very good.
Yeah.
The corners, the stitching, all saddle stitched, right?
Yep, all saddle stitched by hand, leather lined as well. It's a very difficult shape to leather line because of the gusset as well. So it's almost, I like to have a piece by Neil in the shop. He will say he always chooses a very nice piece of leather. I love that you can actually still see
the streaks.
The streaks in this.
Yeah, and it's normal, right? It's It's like humans get creases.
It is, yeah.
So do others. Then you throw in some other things, a little football, some loops.
A solid silver football, which was a presentation piece from the 1940s.
A little bit of taxidermy.
Yep, yeah.
You also have some new items here, but aero concept, that whole style of aerospace,
Absolutely.
nautical.
He has that mix. He makes them in a little workshop in Tokyo, and he takes that really engineering angle. And I'd never seen aluminium and leather combined like that.
So you also have some really nice alligator cases here.
Yep. Some alligator and some croc. Again, I mean, this is really beautiful hide.
Wow.
Incredible condition as well.
Well, especially with leather over the years, it's not just if you wear it or not, it's also the humidity levels, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you have to be careful of that. Yeah. And for a piece like this to survive, croc is always it's a more fragile hide. Originally, I was sure this would have had a canvas cover as
Finnegans.
well. And Finnegans were a wonderful, wonderful maker.
Oh, this is interesting. This is like, it's suede?
Yeah, so we've had this case relined in suede. Yeah.
And you had it like padded?
And padded as well.
What's the padding?
It's like a cushion, yeah.
Cushion filling. Very nice. And you can see the angles, how it angles in.
Yeah.
So
you get that perfect fit.
Gets perfectly on there.
There's a very thin metal frame that just runs through here, which just gives it that sharpness.
And yeah, you can always tell, like all these hides are usually sold by the centimeters of the width. So this hide must have been this wide. Yeah. So it's just expensive raw material.
Very expensive,
to get it. Yeah. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah, so this like one is £4,200.
Interesting, because
actually
the Louis Vuitton is also
$4,200.
So yeah. So I mean, in terms of price of raw materials, this certainly beats this.
And I think a new version of this would be more than probably £20,000-30,000.
Depends on who makes it, right? If Hermes makes it, then
it would be
the price is through the roof.
Yeah.
You pointed out that on these cases you have the stitching done, so you have individual parts of leather jointed, but you also have some other cases.
Yeah, we do. For instance, this is a very unusual English case. So we call it Norfolk hide. It was actually, though it wasn't made in Norfolk, it was made on Norfolk Street in Sheffield, and they've just become known as Norfolk hides. But this is a seamless case, so the top is actually molded from a single piece of leather, and the same with the base as well.
I mean, the advantage is, once it's molded, there's no seam, nothing can come undone, no stitching.
It's really incredibly strong. I mean, there's very next to no
It
flex.
looks like it's not reinforced. So they must have used something like a stiffer cowhide, and then just molded it with steam and heat. And then it just remains in that shape. Yeah.
It's a very old process. There have been medieval examples. They called it queer bully, so boiled leather. So the leather was so wet, impregnated with that, and then it was just molded around a form, and then as the leather dried, it would retain its strength and its shape.
It's incredible because it feels really stiff and solid. You wouldn't think, this is just leather.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a piece of wood. It's like a carved piece of wood. And they do get this beautiful patina. Yeah.
You can knock on it.
Yeah.
But it's all leather.
Yeah. And at really unusual proportions.
How so?
So much thinner. Just the whole shape is quite an unusual size, a little bit smaller than a standard writing case or an attaché case, and a little bit thinner.
Do you think it was like made for someone who just specifically wanted something smaller? Do you know what it was made for?
It may have been made as a writing case because it's a little bit smaller than a writing pad, so it may have been ordered especially for that. But you do see them. I mean, this one is a similar, same Norfolk hide, but just a different proportion. They were unusually shaped.
Beautiful. So then you also have other elements here. The theme was travel, and you wanted to add something complementary, or how did you? What do you call it even?
So this one, this is actually a gun sight that has been made. I love the engineering angle of this. The optics are fantastic. So it's like a telescope. Yeah. And then we had the frame made and found an old tripod to mount it together. Something like the croquet set, that's just this sort of perfect piece of English country house furniture. So, you know, the frame means you can carry this out to your croquet lawn. Yeah. And then there's an amazing picnic set in the window, which is a 6-person picnic set.
Oh, wow.
Which is an extraordinary survival as well.
With the green lining, yes. And there's porcelain with gilt handles.
Yep, with gilt handles, thermos flasks.
What do we have over here? Are these cigar holders?
They are cigar cases, yeah. So these are made in croc. This one is gold mounted, really beautifully made.
Are you a cigar enthusiast?
I've never smoked, but I've always collected cigar things, actually, and smoking things in general. So I'm a big fan of Dunhill, and I've always collected Dunhill pieces.
I mean, yeah, this is beautiful. A frame, again, with a...
Yeah, and this is gold mounted as well.
Neatly folded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed like Asprey did like wallets with the gold corners.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
4,200 pounds.
4,200 pounds, made in 1924.
Can you date it from the hallmark?
You can, yeah. So from the hallmarks we can tell it was made in Britain, the date, the actual year it was made, the maker, and sometimes it also has the assay mark for whether it's assayed in London or Birmingham or Sheffield.
So down here you have even larger cases. Are these also cigar cases?
They are, yeah.
It's a lizard, maybe?
That one is in lizard, yeah. And this is actually a really unusual size, quite narrow. This is always the challenge that actually they smoked a much thinner cigar in this era. So to find something for a Robusto is quite unusual.
Big, right? The other one?
This one is divided as well, yeah.
Oh, it's divided.
Wonderful case, and then it has clever design. So it folds out like that. So it probably would have taken 6 in each. 6 in each.
Like this moire lining.
Yeah, it's really fine. Really finely done. Actually, this is a leather lined. Yeah, leather lined.
I think what I always find interesting is, you know, traditionally you have alligator and crocodile letters with a shine, and people assume it's you know, a layer of something. But this is actually done in a mechanical way. You treat the leather and then it becomes shiny.
Yeah. I was watching a video of that actually recently. Yeah, it was really interesting to see. These develop a much softer sort of patina, I think, than a new piece of croc. I find very, very shiny. I like the sort of softness of the old croc.
Yeah. Very beautiful.
Yeah.
So I also see quite a bit of barware here.
Yep, we have a really big collection of cocktail shakers, ice buckets, measures. This is a great set of silver beakers that have a flask as well. They all fit together like this. 6 silver beakers and then a very nice flask as well.
So this strikes me as the perfect gentleman's gift store. Is that how you position yourself?
Yeah, I think it is. There's definitely that angle. It's the shop for the man that has everything. We hear that a lot. My husband has everything. I said, oh, well, he probably doesn't have an inkwell with its original clock in it. Or a classic shaker. This one, when you turn it, it has all of the recipes for different cocktails. Or this is an amazing collection of goggles that I found.
Oh.
So I bought 99 pairs of goggles.
May I take one?
Yeah. And these, because they were the archive of the goggle makers, the manufacturer, these would be perfect for the Goodwood revival. These are amazing.
So was this for driving in your car?
Yeah, in your car or your plane. Because
so
this time, if you had a plane, this would be about 1920. So it was, you know, the really the first people that had planes then. You know, it was like having a spaceship now.
Obscure little things. Or this is a big cigar case?
It's actually, we call it a dispatch box. And so it was a writing box, but to have it made in Crocodile and for it to have survived like this, it's beautiful inside. It has a Brahma lock, which is a very clever cylinder lock, so it's very, very secure.
Oh, nice.
That's all the original lining.
The green leather, kind of quilted.
It has a
pattern.
tray here as well.
This is amazing.
Yeah, really nice. Just wonderful condition. Yeah.
Oh yeah, here you can see the mechanics. This is like exquisite.
Yeah. They call it a piano hinge, where you have that. It's the strongest hinge you can get. So it would have been very secure as well.
Do you know who made this?
No, I don't. It doesn't have a maker's name. I've had ones similar that were made by Asprey, and it's very much their sort of quality.
Well, just the inlay here,
Yeah.
how neatly it's done on the leather, like the workmanship of this is pristine.
Yeah, it is. And actually very nice hand-engraved initials as well.
Let's say you have that man in your life that has everything, but you're not in London. How do you buy from you?
Yeah, well, actually through the website. We ship around the world. Probably half the business is exported. So we're very familiar. Shipping is generally not a problem.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So one of the brands that is, really renowned and I personally like is vintage Asprey. And I've seen you have a few items here that fit that bill.
I'm very fond of actually Asprey because I think they epitomise British luxury goods, and their heyday one of their heydays was definitely the 20s and 30s.
Because they had a bespoke workshop and they made everything to order that you could think of, basically. So they had everyday pieces that were made to a really high luxury standard that no one else would do or offer, but just them.
And also, what was lovely is in their original store, they had all of the workshops in the roof. So all of their craftsmen within the store. So you could sit down with the actual craftsman and talk through how you wanted it designed, maybe the engraving you wanted.
So today, Asprey it's part of a conglomerate, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure who the actually owner of Asprey.
I think it's Richemont, probably.
Yeah,
I may be wrong.
I think it was sold to the Sultan of Brunei. His brother, Prince Geoffrey, owned it for a period of time, and then they had investment from Silas Chow and I think the people that backed Tommy Hilfiger. They owned it for a while.
And I think then eventually, like the actual family, the Asprey family, also started the business, and they used their name, but there were like trademark disputes. So it's now known as...
It's now known as William and Sons.
William and Sons.
Yeah, and that's actually run by William Asprey. So who is of the Asprey family.
And it's the same concept, right, of bespoke leather good items created at a very high level.
Yeah, a lot of top watches, really high-end jewelry as well. Yeah.
So what have we got here?
So this was an incredible little set. You kind of know the quality from the fineness of the pigskin they chose. It has a solid silver lock, which is wonderfully extravagant. And then it's a set of enameled gambling chips.
This is incredibly heavy. I mean, I would guess, what, is it 3 pounds maybe?
I would
Two
think,
at least.
yeah, it must be that. So, a pound in the 20s, there was a significant sort of wager.
We'll have to calculate it in the inflation calculator.
Absolutely.
On how much that was.
But to have pounds, shillings and pence, it's just, I think it's a very creative solution.
And very neat.
Beautifully done.
Also how it comes out, right? So you can take it out, if you can hold it, and you can see everything is wrapped very neatly.
Yeah, and gilt metal as well, just to finish it off. It's just so well executed, isn't it?
You're hard pressed to find the seams there, and everything fits like a glove.
Yeah, perfectly. It's the sort of thing that would have been in that Asprey's catalogue from the 1930s. And
this is, I mean, you can even see the outline is the dust cover. Oh no, it's not a dust cover. It looks like a dust cover, but it's part of the book.
Yep, yeah.
It's the Alligator inspiration. Oh, and printed in color. Travel set, green pig spin. Oh, and here, this was the set that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then wallets in Crocodile.
This is cool inspiration for actual, modern luxury leather goods.
Yeah.
These are probably hard to come by.
Very difficult. Yeah, they're really difficult to find. I suppose they wouldn't have produced very many, and they're just not the sort of thing that would have survived.
Beautiful. What do we have here?
So this is just a very beautiful piece of silver, a silver cigarette box. But I love this finish. It's a molten silver. They called it Samarodok. And it was
Russian?
It was a Russian technique. And
is it with temperature changes?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. They almost freeze it. So I think they dropped it into ice cold water and then that froze it. I think that was the process. So you get that such an unusual,
irregular.
Yeah, it's like a landscape, isn't it? And it's just a really nice.
Like a Martian landscape.
Yeah. So it's very nice quality.
Leather at the bottom with the hallmarks.
Because when silver is a very good antibacterial, so
they use it in fabrics, for like socks.
Yeah,
you can kind of weave a little bit of silver into it to make it antibacterial.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so this was for when you were going on your campaign to take your own silver cup with you, but so cleverly made.
Interesting. So
you just slide you just have to slide your thumbnail in here. Now
you open it up,
and the lid holds everything together.
The lid holds everything together without play.
Yeah.
Have you tested it? Is it tight?
It will hold. Yeah.
Incredible.
And every single piece is hallmarked. It's just a very ingenious solution to a problem.
Yeah, if you have someone who wants something special, this is truly special. And then you just collapse it by pushing it down?
Yeah, and just push the top and the bottom together. Yeah, it collapses down.
Wow. Oh no, I didn't do it well. Interesting, and then you just pull it up.
Yeah.
I mean, to design this, how old do you think this is?
Yeah, so we can tell precisely because of the hallmarks. So it was made in 1909.
1909.
Yeah.
So they were able to machine it because it requires precision.
Absolute precision, yeah.
Yeah, 2,400 pounds, 1909 for this special
ultimate traveling cup.
Well, Tim, thank you so much. You have a treasure trove of unique items. I wonder, you probably spend a lot of time hunting for these things. Or do people come to you by now because
sometimes.
Made a name for yourself?
I mean, the nice thing is you never know. The joy of the business is you never know what you might find next. Love it. Raphael, thank you. It's a pleasure to show you around.